Hello, my name is Jackie Ridge, and I am going to be talking about reading fluency for multilingual learners. First, I want to build some background. Yes, it's very important to build background knowledge for our multilingual students, but I also want to build background for our educators when delivering fluency instruction. Many multilingual learners may sound fluent when they are reading aloud because they have strong decoding skills and strategies from their first language. So that might be deceiving. We might hear them reading, but then when we ask them to comprehend, they may be able to only retell one or two, or maybe even not be able to retell anything. So just because a multilingual learner may sound like they have great decoding skills and fluent skills, that's because they have strong reading foundations in their first language. And the comprehension is not there yet for their second language because we need to connect meaning to that as well. A multilingual learner may also benefit less from listening to someone else read aloud because we haven't yet made that connection to vocabulary and background knowledge, and there may be gaps with that vocabulary and background knowledge, even though read alouds and oral reading it may be helpful, it may confuse or not be as beneficial for multilingual learners. And while the goal of fluency is to achieve automaticity, accuracy, and prosody, there are other factors at play for our multilingual students, which I will go into more in this presentation. Basically, the key message is that fluency is not always automatic, does not always mean automatic comprehension. For multilingual learners, they are going to need other components such as oral language, vocabulary, and meaning of the words that they are reading is going to matter greatly. Cardenas Hagen reminds us that fluency is multidimensional. Accuracy, automaticity, and prosody all matter. But for multilingual learners, oral language and vocabulary play an even bigger role. They need support linking word reading to meaningful language. They need to be able to bridge that gap between decoding and understanding what they are reading, their comprehension. So it goes much deeper than just accuracy, automaticity, and prosody. So what does research say? Research tells us about fluency in multilingual learners. Jiva and colleagues found that phonological awareness and rapid naming are key predictors of fluency for English learners. Adasi and Sanders showed that explicit phonics instruction paired with decodable text significantly improved reading fluency outcomes, even for students starting with limited English vocabulary. Cardenas Hagen reminds us that fluency links decoding to comprehension through repeated oral practice. And Briseth adds a crucial classroom insight, stating that multilingual learners build fluency most effectively when teachers model phrasing and intonation. That's those stress patterns, that rhythm that we have in our English words. And then guide students through repeated, meaningful rereads. So exposure, repetition, also modeling. So we need to have explicit modeling, we need to have repetition, and we need to give them opportunities to independently reread and provide guided independent reading opportunities. So what does this mean for EL instruction? When teaching multilingual learners, fluency routines should be intentional and connected to meaning. Meaning is very critical for our multilingual learners. We would want to pre-teach vocabulary, model the phrasing that we would use when reading sentences. There's a rhythm with reading, and we want to be explicit about teaching that rhythm for that prosody. And we also want to make connections between English and the student's home language to build that multilinguistic awareness. We want to always be connecting their L2 back to their L1 to help bridge those gaps between the two languages. So what are some strategies for multilingual learners? Fluency instruction must go beyond speed. Briseth and Cardenas Hagen reminds us to balance rate with comprehension, connect fluency to foundational skills, and provide repeated guided practice. We should be modeling phrasing through structured routines like echo reading, partner reading, choral reading. Echo reading, I read, they repeat what I read. Choral, or you could do that with a partner. They could do that with partners. Choral reading, we read together all at once. They're able to hear and listen to my phrasing as I'm for echo or choral reading, would also help build this oral language in that phrasing that we would want with our fluency. So I said it needs to be multisensory, systematic, and explicit. And we need to find ways to integrate not only fluency with phonics, but also to engage that vocabulary and oral language component to also help bridge that gap from decoding to comprehension. So I'm going to get into the lesson. I chose to do a VCE pattern example of what a fluency lesson or some strategies that I may incorporate with some of my students. One thing that I really like to do is provide my students a chance for self-discovery. I want to allow them the opportunity to listen as I read the words and have them identify common sounds that they are hearing. I also want them to look at the words. What patterns do you notice? Like, what patterns are my students seeing that are going to allow them to self-discover the skill or sound or graphing that we are working on? Then I would want to create orthographic mapping to that sound. So that way it is, when they see it, it is here, it is processed. They are able to connect that grapheme to the sound. So that should help their fluency and their accuracy when they are reading and lead to more automaticity. So we really want to get that orthographic mapping down of our new skill or sound or grapheme. And this is a common theme. We definitely want to be pre-teaching vocabulary. I could provide a list of words, or I could provide the decodable first to kind of help pre-teach that vocabulary, help them see the new skill that we're working with. We can have them highlight words with the targeted pattern, and that way meaning can be connected and going beyond just the fluency. Word and sentence reading also is going to be really important. Fluency, we need to be reading the words, but also connecting that vocabulary. So reading for accuracy, echo reading or choral rereading would be very beneficial for my students when I'm doing a fluency lesson. And also always reflecting on meaning of new words, meaning of unfamiliar words, and also comprehension. I want to forward my students opportunities to be able to provide what they have learned and be able to comprehend. I want to assess their comprehension of the material that we just read as well. So the self-discovery strategies, this is something that my students would see. We would engage in this oral conversation. What do you see? I make sure I provide visuals that also connect words that they are seeing on the screen and the sounds they are hearing to visuals to help, pre-teach that vocabulary. So what do you see? What do you hear? I would go through and I would let them look at the words. Okay, what pattern do you notice in each of these words? What do you notice is at the end at all of these words? What letter do you see in the middle of all of these words? And allow them those oral opportunities to engage in conversation and help them self-discover it. I would read these words to them. Listen to me read these words. What sound do you hear in all of these words? Cave, rake, plane. And I would engage in conversation with them about the sounds they are hearing. Then I would help connect. Yeah, very good. We all hear that long A sound. In Spanish, you have the A sound. In English, this is one way that you might see the A sound written. This is A consonant E. And then we would talk about the words. I would connect. A cave has that A sound. Cave is spelled like this. Cave, this is a cave. And we would go into detail about connecting that word to the image and the sound, and also going back to their L1 as well and connecting that cross-linguistic transfer. So rake, I would do the same thing for rake. We would talk about that. And plane. So we would want to always be going back and connecting to their L1 when introducing new skills in their L2, their second language. So the orthographic mapping part I was talking about, this is, I would, after say in Spanish, you will hear the A sound, but in English, this is a way that you will see the A sound spelled when you are reading or when we are writing. This could be a way to spell an English word. So A consonant E. We might skywrite this, A consonant E, then say a keyword that connects the sound to a visual. A consonant E, safe, A. And we would do that 3 times. We might have them write it multiple times, but I just want to get that repetition and that orthographic mapping into their brains so that way they are able to connect an English sound with an English grapheme. And then we would go to fluency with our decodables. Like I said, this could be at the end of a lesson, but it could easily be put to the beginning of the lesson. So what I like to do before diving in and just going straight for the decodable, I might give them phrases and start building up, give them smaller chunks. We might work on chunking a phrase. We might work on how a phrase might sound. I would probably help them adjust our voice. I would have them listen to me read a phrase so they could hear me. So we would start small with phrases, work our way up to sentences. And I was very intentional about making sure I used phrases and sentences from the decodable that was generated. So I made sure that I went in and I found, and also all my phrases and sentences really hit that targeted skill, that A consonant E. So I might say Nate and Kate, and then have them repeat while also practicing their voice. To the lake. They saw a cave. Back to my sentences. The cave was deep and dark. Get back to the lake. And I would point out that the exclamation point would mean something. So then we would go and read. I would read. They would echo read. Then we would choral read together. Then I would have them highlight our new skill and reread those new words to keep practicing. So this is a constant pattern of repetition and working on our accuracy, our automaticity, our prosody, and also trying to connect meaning with our students. So integrating oral language. So when I am going to integrate oral language, I want to remind that Breseth emphasizes that reading aloud and oral practice as are essential tools for building comprehension and confidence. Activities like partner reading and performance help multilingual learners internalize rhythm, phrasing, and intonation in English. So allowing partner activities, oral language, allowing them to speak and communicate. Readers theater is amazing for this. I would also want to help my students engage in peer conversations by scaffolding my oral language with sentence frames. So we would constantly want to be tying what we are reading back to oral language as well. So key takeaways that I want to point out about fluency instruction with multilingual learners is that research across is clear. When we combine structured literacy with language-rich, culturally responsive practices, multilingual learners become fluent readers who read with expression and understanding. And I also want to point out that Cardenas Hagen states that fluency is not just speed. And we need to be very deliberate about that. It's about understanding spoken. It's about understanding spoken through expression. So we want to make sure that our multilingual learners have the opportunity to have explicit structured practice. And we want to make sure that fluency is hitting the decoding as well as the comprehension, but also integrating a culturally rich language environment for them as well. So thank you so much. Here are my references. I hope you enjoyed the presentation and have a great day.